All right, so in this video, we're going to be taking this expanded form, sometimes called the general form of an equation, and turning it into that standard form that we've been talking about in the previous video. So this is going to be a little longer than the last couple of videos. Basically, what we have to do is we have to complete the square twice. Stay with me. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to rearrange our equation into something where we can complete the square, because we want to get it into this form. Right? Remember, this is the form we want. This is the goal. So we want to get it into that form. So we need to rearrange it in a way that we have our x's together, our y's together, and numbers on the other side. So with that in mind, I'm going to rearrange. So right now this is xy, xy. So I'm going to put the x's together and I've put the y's together and I'm going to put the constant on the other side. So I'm subtracting the 65 to the other side. So I'm going to do all of that in one step. And this is going to get a little long space-wise. So I might end up being on two lines. Hopefully not, because that would be kind of annoying. So I'm going to try to write small. So I have x squared plus 14x, and then I'm going to be completing the square. So I'm going to leave myself with some space, and then I have y squared minus 10y. And again, I'm going to leave myself some space for completing the square, and I'm subtracting the 65 to the other side. So I have negative 65 on this side. Okay, so this is my setup. This is my setup for completing the square. So in my next line, I'm going to change color. In my next line, I'm going to have x plus something squared. I'm going to have y plus something squared. So I need to figure out what my something is. So if you remember back to parabolas when we learned how to complete the square, we figure out what we're adding by dividing this middle number by 2, because we're trying to create a perfect square trinomial, which is in the form of a we don't need the x's. That was superfluous. All right. So we have the front things, a perfect square trinomial is the front thing squared plus 2 times the two things multiplied together, plus the second thing squared. So that's why we divide by 2 here. So we're going to divide by 2, and so 14 divided by 2 is 7, right? So that tells us that our x plus something squared is going to be x plus 7 squared. That's what we're trying to get, is x plus 7 squared. Over here, we're trying to get y minus 5 squared. So we're going to have y minus 5 squared. So we can already tell what the center of our circle is going to be. But we have to finish the process to get the radius. So let's do that. So by adding a 7 squared, right, I added 49. Right, I added 49 here. And this whole thing is becoming this, right? So if I added 49, I need to subtract 49 on this side. Okay? Nope. Wrong. I need to add 49 on this side. If I added 49 on one side of the equal sign, I need to do the same thing on the other side of the equal sign, right? What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So these are going to have the same sign. because I'm doing it on the other side of the equal sign. So these are going to have the same sign. If I add 49 over here, I have to add 49 over here, which is a little different, I think, than what we did when we were doing it with parabolas, because we kept it on the same side of the equation when we did it with parabolas. But with circles, it makes way more sense to put it on the opposite side of the equation. So we're going to add on both sides of the equation instead of adding and subtracting on the same side. Hopefully that makes sense. So then over here, I'm adding, right, negative 5 squared is 25. So I'm adding 25 on this side. So I need to add 25 on this side. And this perfect square trinomial becomes this. So this is my new left side, and I need to figure out what my new right side is going to be by adding all these numbers together. So I'm going to do this on a calculator because I don't trust my mental math right now. So I end up, when I add all these together, I get positive 9. So adding these all together, I get 9. So this equals 9. Sorry, it's not straight. But that's my new equation. So I'm going to rewrite the equation so that it looks nice. So I get x plus 7 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 9. So hopefully, I'm pretty sure when I said that we were completing the square twice, some of you went, but hopefully you see that it's not actually that bad, right? We're just dividing by 2, figuring out how much we added, so squaring the second number to figure out how much we added, and then adding that to the other side as well. And we're doing that on both of them, and we're doing them simultaneously, so it doesn't even really feel like 2 steps, right? It's doing exactly the same process in this side as we're doing here, and then we're just adding all those together. So we should have 3 numbers here that are being added together. And just don't forget to square them, okay? In fact, if you don't square them, a lot of times, and this is what would have happened here, you would end up with a negative number on this side, which cannot happen. You can't have a negative radius, okay? It doesn't compute. So if you do end up with a negative over here, check that you squared these, because the most common mistake that ends up with a negative here is that you forgot to square. That's the most common way that that happens. So if you end up with a negative radius, check and make sure that you squared both of these. And hopefully, since I've given you that warning, that will help remind you to do that. So now that we have this form, now we can answer the question, and answering the question is easy, right? The center of the circle is now negative 7, 5. And the radius is going to be 3, right? Because remember again that this is the radius squared. So the radius is 3. And we did it, yay. Okay, so hopefully that all makes sense. If you want me to do another example, please let me know. And I will see you in the next video.